Hi guys, welcome back to chapter 14. For chapter 14, we will be creating a series of sketches of the scenes that we have already screen captured, such as this one. And you might ask, why do we need a second draft? Didn't we do one already in the second chapter? Well, I would like to share a little experience with you. And for a lot of times, we start with a project and we go from here and the project become bigger. And this is our final project. Suppose it's like this. And for me, there were a lot of times where I had to figure out going back and forth. For example, there are many stages to a project, and I have to, go here, maybe it's like right, go back, and maybe try again, and it's not correct, and end up back in the same stage. Or even worse, go all the way near the end and figure out, okay, that is not something we want, or we're missing pieces, and we go back. So these are extremely bad examples that I don't want you guys to have to go through. Because right now, we are somewhere in the middle here, in the 50% stage. So what we did before, we have completed most of the modeling. We have our characters, we have our clothing, and we have our buildings. So we have mostly all of them, and when we put them together, it makes a pretty good looking scene, but we're missing the latter stages. We're missing, first of all, we're missing lighting. We're missing good pose. I mean, we do have pose here, but we lack pose, the dynamic kind. And we are lacking some little pieces of props. I would call them the crucial props that can add to our entire composition, as well as maybe even make our narrative even better, give little clues to our viewers to make our story more interesting. So that is the second half that can make a project shine. So the purpose for making this sketch is that we are essentially making a list of all these things through our sketch, because with a sketch we can really go back, take a step back, and look at what we have already built. We have spent a lot of time going into all these specific parts that now that we put it together, we can really take a step back and start to plan out what we need to add, so that we set a clear goal, so we can always refer back to this goal and know that there is a guideline that we can follow. You can be experimental with your process, but a lot of times there's a cost to that, and that is efficiency and time. So if you want to have a smooth sailing project at this stage, it's really, really important to start planning things out. And later we'll be following this to complete our project. All right, so without further ado, let us start. So there are the things that we plan in this chapter are the pose of the character, and we want to make it more dynamic, so the pose is really, really interesting. And second, we are going to go through the pose, or actually through the pose we're going to be looking at the proportions of the props, and character. And third, we will be going through our environment, And we're going to be going through the environment to add, additional props that can enhance the story as well as the composition. Okay, so being said, let's start with the first scene. Okay, so now let's take a look at the first scene. So with the first scene, our main purpose is to show the context, as we have said before, as well as the main event that is happening in the scene. And with this, we have the frame that is being framed out from the light of the claw machine. It is distinctly pink, and we have a distinct blue region that is over here. And on top of the blue region, we have a bunch of elements that are just everywhere. We have our AC units. We have the lines that are running through them, like this, everywhere. And we have our electric boxes that are on the wall as well as like these electric lines that are running through the wall. But if you take a look at what we have now, you'll see that, okay, so there are a lot of details already, but it's mostly on the top, so that the composition right now is rather top heavy. And for the bottom here, we just have this one single line that goes around, and the street is appearing rather bland. So if we take a look at a real street, we'll know that there are many elements on a real street. Okay, I'll stop trying these. I'm just so compelled to finish this. But if we take a look at a real street, we'll notice that, okay, there are gutters, there are manholes, there are a bunch of other things, maintenance hatches and everything. And these are elements that can also help us make our street look more balanced according to the top. So, like we can have a maintenance hatch here because we have an electric pole here. So usually there's a maintenance hatch, and then we have like these smaller ones that are on the road, and then we can have like a manhole cover somewhere like on the way here. But also, we can even play around with reflections. That there could be a pool of water. And then our scene on top is being reflected on the bottom. We see some of the character and then some of the walls over here. So all of a sudden we'll have something on the bottom that also have the amount of detail that can balance off the top as well. So we can also do it like this. For this boxes over here, maybe just moving it up a bit so we make room for something here, because right now this place has a lot of real estate in the image, which is good. Like for a good image, obviously there are breathing spaces, but usually for the breathing space, it's left for something that makes an information for the viewer. For example, we have our information here. This information is in terms of our incident. We have our claw machine here, and we have our character. Now, this is the only kind of information that is given in terms of a narrative. But with the spaces here, we can also add things that can make the information like a secondary kind of information that adds toward the narrative. So, for example, here, if we add, in terms of geometry, something that's also square, so we have this continuation of square. Maybe I'll use a different light color. And then for this one, maybe it's a store banner, because this looks like a store, and that we've taken over the space. But what was this store before? This could be a convenience shop, or it could be, a restaurant or something. So we can use like a store banner here to refer to something that has happened before, but it adds sort of like a layer of information for the narrative. And as well as this, we have this really clear border. So then we can also use this border to make something that's interesting. For example, it could be a different colored wire that's running through this. We can have several of them, and that they're running down this space and onto here. So then we're actually, like using another element to redefine this contrast between this space that is rather clean by itself. There's not too much information, but at the same time, we have all this complicated element that's framing our space of emptiness. So then we have like these breathing space and a non-breathing space, one that's actually filled. So this can enhance our theme of that, she is having, not it's hard for her to find a direction among like a modern city that has a rigid, this pattern of circuitry like maze thing that's surrounding her. So it's something that we can do to add towards our sense of narrative. So yeah, so we can add, like something here, and we can add maintenance hatches, like water pools, because we will be adding some weather effects to make the whole scene more interesting, as well as some like manholes, maintenance hatches and stuff, but nothing in here. So just some things in here to balance off the top and the bottom. Okay. And to further the narrative some more, I'm thinking that, we want to be able to tell who this girl is, our main character. We don't have too much information on her other than that she's here, she's trying to get something out of this machine. So we can add some other props in here, like we can add a little purse, and that she just came from a party or off from work. And then we can also add, some beer cans, so that she has stayed here for a while and she has been under the influence of alcohol, especially that, these came from maybe like in a bag, and then the bag can appear that it's from some sort of convenience shop. So, like she just bought them on her way home from work, and that she just, stop by this machine. So then it's all these little elements that we can add to just make a normal scene like what we had before even more interesting to look at and filled with information that can add toward our story. Okay, now let's look at the next scene. So the main character, or the main thing that's drawing our attention to, is this character here. She is what's drawing attention to our view. And right now she's just standing there, and then there's not much that we can tell from her standing, because it's obviously a temporary pose, but at the same time we want our pose to convey different things about her. For example, we want her to be expressing some sort of mood, maybe even better, her personality. So all that can be achieved from the pose that she's doing. So then let's go back and take a look at her pose. So I took a shot of her from a front view, so we can plan out her pose in here. And right now she's just standing here, or sitting there actually, and just looking pretty. That's not something we want. We want to give her some dynamic posturing. So to start off with, we can use a technique that animators or illustrators, 2D illustrators use, and it's called the line of action. So first, let's analyze this picture. Our line of action is essentially just this. It occupies a very small space, and if you want, this is her leg sticking out, and then you have her face, and then you have her hands. Now that is a line of action that is really neutral, and we want to give her something that uses the entire space, and then give her some sort of mood. So being a person inside this machine, she's like a baby, and then she's lying there in the womb, and I'm thinking that maybe she's actually, lying more on her back. So her line of action could be like this, and then her leg could be like that, just a simple line, so we get the effect of what we want to convey. And then, with her arms, she's hugging her head just like a baby, and then she's showing a bit of her head just like that, maybe even just like having the eye showing here, and then her hair would cover a bunch of other parts of her body. So let's take some time to draw this out. Okay, so we have our basic lines, and now I'm gonna add another layer. Okay, so then the head is like this. It's turned mostly away from us, and then she has an arm that's like this, and the other hand can be grabbing onto that as well. And now the shoulder, and then this is the body. So the body's like that, and then we have like her butt here, and then this is her shoulders being lifted. Actually, it'll be like this. It's blocking part of her face. And let's just take big shapes to draw out her pose. So the one of the leg is like this, and her feet is like a ballerina's being squeezed together like that. And then her other leg could be stretched over like that, and it's stepping onto the glass. So then this pose is a lot more dynamic than what we had before. She's just waking up to someone playing the game, and then she's like, who is that? And her ears are like that, and she's just waking up. Let's make the face part a little more clear. So like that, turned away, and like that. And then her eyes could be like here, and the nose, and then the other parts are hidden behind. And then we have a bit of the ear showing. So yeah, this could be the pose for our character inside the machine. So we can take this off, and imagine that her face is like this. She's turned a little this way. It's hard to do this with the perspective, but you get the idea. And then that's that's the arm. The other arms like that, and then we have the body going around her butt, and then one of the legs like this, and then the other leg is being like that. So we have the foot showing here, and then the rest is the same. I mean, if we have our wires that we planned to contrast our border or to mark out the border a little, we'll have something going on the side here as well. Maybe it's like a series of wires that run down like that. But other than that, this is our second shot. Okay, and now for the third shot. Let me copy this over. Okay, so we want this character in shot 3 to look almost in the same position, except that her face is maybe looking up. But other than that, like, we can go to the next shot to figure out exactly what her posture would be. So her hand should be somewhere here as well, grabbing onto the joystick. And then for this hand, maybe they don't have to be touching, because her hand is not touching anymore, and she needs to support her weight somewhere. So maybe it should be just lying here, supporting her whole body. So yeah, let's go to the second shot to figure this out. Go to the next shot to figure this out. So we have this. So this shot, I have made another more orthogonal view here. So now we can start planning the pose of our main character. So for our main character, we want to start off with the same technique as we used before. We're going to start by applying the line of action. So for her, it's actually, her pose from what we have now is nearly okay. There's not too much problems with it. So if we draw a line of action, it's pretty much like this. But right now, the problem is that with her, her arms are like this, and it's really hard to support someone. I mean, like, you could, but it looks like she's pushing against this glass rather than supporting her weight, where instead her weight should be applied downwards. So then you form like a triangle of sort, so that her weight is pushed down and then her head is looking up. So that's what we want. So in this case, our claw machine needs to be altered, because remember when it was like this, the height is actually lower. We have the joystick, but then because when we modeled it, we raised this part, and now the whole entire machine actually looks too big. And now with her proportion, our machine looks like if she is just the size of like a toddler maybe. So then we want to lower this to where her arms can support herself. So usually it's around here. And then we have the rest of the machine that's like this. Okay. And now we can go back and start applying our pose. I'm just going to make a better version. So it's like that. Okay. Now with yellow, let's start drawing our character according to our line of action. Okay, so first we can draw the head. She's looking up. Maybe the head is a little too big. So like here, and then her head is looking up at at the character, because the character would be somewhere here, and then looking at her this way, something like that. So then our character is here, the ear, and then now for the lever, let's move her hand this way, and then a little back. So then she's pulling the lever back this time. So we have some sort of like interaction happening. So rather than having her hand placed directly just on top like it's being resting, then we have a hand that's pulling it back. And that's another dynamic interaction that we can add. And now for the other side, this is the shoulder. And now for the other side, actually this is actually lowered, and the other one is a little raised because she's supporting her weight. So then this is this way, and it's somewhere here. So she's supporting her weight while the head is looking forward. Like that. Okay. And now the back line is still the same as before, like that. And then this is the shoulder in the front. Now for this leg, it's pretty much in the right place. We can just leave this. Now because the weight is shifted, we have the weight supporting this side. This side will be a little higher, so then the leg is like, the hip joint will be here, and then the other side is a little lower, so it'll be more relaxed, and she can, you know, like have her feet here, so it makes the pose a lot more interesting. And then of course the ear will also be a little moving forward, like, you know, when bunnies are curious, their ear go forward. And yeah, and then the hair can be like here. So our character will be standing like this. This weight is higher and lower, and then this is lower and higher. So we have also a nice play of balance between the posture. Right now she's just standing here, right? Looking good with the heels, but to be honest, a lot of times when someone has been standing here for hours, especially when we're planning to add the beer and the purse on the ground, to be honest, she should probably have her shoes taken off. So she's maybe just have one feet like on the ground like that, barefooted, and then the other one is like this. So now this is more comfortable, and then on here we can have, you know, one of the heels lying down. On the ground, and then the other one is probably standing still here behind her somewhere, or maybe it's here. Yeah, so I think this will give her even better of a mood, and then better of a character. It'll be even more interesting to see. Okay, so now we can come back and just do a summary of the things that we have to add as in terms of a checklist. For example, with the main character, I'm gonna switch over this to pencil. So with the main character, definitely we'll be changing the pose, and then with the pose we have the legs, and then the arms that we have to change, as well as the head, which is the different angle. And then with that, maybe we can take off her shoes, or maybe leave one of them on or something. So the shoes is something that we can think about with the modeling later. As well as finally, we want to lower the machine so that her hand can lie comfortably stretched on top of it. Okay, so that's for this one. And then for this character, the things that we have changed is obviously also the pose, which means that she is lying down more, lying down on her back, as well as her hands, her arms, and most importantly, the arms hiding hidden head or hidden face, so that she's looking sleepy. And as regarding the size of the machine, we can try to, if right now it seems the body is a little bit long, but if we can, somehow move this a little further inwards, let's try to reduce the width of the claw machine so that she looks a little bit more squeezed in there, so a little bit more uncomfortable. But at the same time, I think the proportion of the machine would be even more right, because right now it is a little bit wide. So then we have the machine width that we can go ahead and also think about. And lastly, for our first shot, we have many things. We have, our maintenance hatch. We have our maintenance hatch here. We have maybe a manhole cover, so the street is more interesting. Maybe we can even add a gutter, so a gutter somewhere around the edge here. We have a gutter, and then we have this patch of water that can cause reflection, so it makes the street even more dynamic with the reflections. We have a purse, we have some beer, and then we have our sign. Could be a sign, could be something else, so we have to think about, but as long as it's also square, so we complete this language all the way down, so it forms like a frame around this frame. And then we have some cables running along the edge. So all of things are the things that we can add, but when we're actually adding it, we will do the design for each individual pieces and place them in the scene. Of course, as much as we try not to redo some of the pieces, in case some of the pieces that we add in here don't work out, we would still have the liberty of just deleting them. But if we have made the props ready, then we can use the props in the future project. I'm pretty sure it will be of use somewhere. Okay, so now this ends our chapter, and we have made a list. Make sure to save these scenes, or think about what other things we can add to make the images or the composition more interesting. And yeah, keep that in mind, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye for now.